Top Game with your host, Sammy Castro. Episode 34, Master Sergeant Quinn Lee, Company H Marine Cryptologic Support Battalion Command Senior Enlisted Leader. In this interview, I had the privilege of learning from Top Lee as he takes us on a journey through the complexities of leadership within the Marine Corps by sharing personal experiences from his diverse roles to include the SIGINT Officers Course, as well as recruiting duty. You'll hear about the unique challenges of advising his company commander and leading a team of 48 Marines while maintaining the balance between independent mission execution and overarching Marine Corps requirements. We explore the delicate integration of intelligence roles with fundamental Marine skills and the communication strategies that make this possible. Our guest offers a candid look at the resistance to change within the Marine Corps and the vital role of mentorship in shaping the next generation of our leaders. For our subscribers, we delve even deeper into our stories of service and camaraderie. We also discuss the Corps' adaptability in the information age and innovative initiatives like the Fighting Smart docuseries. Through personal anecdotes, we celebrate the timeless values of courage and duty that extend beyond the battlefield. Whether you're an old hand or a new join, or just someone fascinated by the art of leadership, this episode promises to be a thought-provoking exploration of the enduring spirit that defines the Corps. So settle in for the journey as we uncover the heart of one of our best. Thanks for tuning in. Usually you'll see me listen in and I'm aware, a little bit of practice, and then you'll see me lean in like this. And it hits different when you come in tighter on that. But that should be good for you.
Okay.
And in post, I can balance it out and make sure that we're leveled appropriately. But first and foremost, thank you for agreeing to sit down for an interview. It takes a little bit of courage. I get that. There was nothing more evident of that fact than when you're like, oh, you got some questions. Like, it's not that kind of party.
Yeah, you caught me off guard a little bit when you asked me if I was down, and I said, all right, put me in my prep time. Let's go.
And it's a little different now than when I initially started. As you can imagine, it now has maybe a legacy, as well as an element where I took a significant break, and I needed that for a lot of reasons, but primarily because, still kind of learning what was needed from me in the role that I currently sit in now as the DCI's SEA and all that entails. And some of it's, just a day-to-day grind in support of the 3-star. And then some of it is when I have the availability and the freedom of maneuver, how do I capitalize that in an optimized fashion? Understanding placement, access, and proximity to executive championship, and being able to wield that influence appropriately with precision as opposed to squandering it. And it's one of the reasons why I held off on a lot of the production behind the show, was because it all impacts the boss, good, bad, or indifferent. And I was still calibrating. In my sit down with General Carter, he was like, push, get it out there. General Glavia was making sure he was the main thing. That's not General Carter's style. He has a not completely, but sufficiently distinct perspective, particularly in the role of his senior enlisted. And so we're back at it. So thank you for agreeing to be part of that, because he's asked me to continue to push out this content and understanding what it's been and what it continues to be and what it could be going forward in a way that I think Rich Dudo was the one that really kind of laid it out for me in terms of these are audio biographical sketches of some of our key leaders. And now you're a Master Sergeant as a Command Senior Enlisted Leader in Company H. How are you handling that?
Man, I'd say it's definitely an adjustment. kind of taken a look at my career path and where I've been, not used to the position that Major Huxtable put me in, right? So just to add a little bit of context to it, right? Did some time at Company B, then went to 3rd Radio Battalion, and then I got pegged to be the course chief for SIOC. So, got to utilize what I've learned to teach our new second lieutenants about what the job is and how to lead their Marines. And then I got a curveball thrown at me, going on a special duty assignment on recruiting duty. And then from there, I think where I went, became our intel screener for the West Coast, and, had the pleasure of working under you and Lieutenant General Glavy.
I wouldn't classify that as working under us. I mean, if anything, you were doing what you needed to do, almost kind of alone and unafraid.
Yeah. Being at SIOC, being on recruiting duty, and then being over at the depot in San Diego, they're really one-on-one billets. So, being away from the flagpole, given a mission, given some guidance, and then just going out there and executing. And then, once I was done with the screening gig, coming here to Company H, I know we've had previous conversations before, and I told you I just want to be with the Marines, right? I want to interact with them and, understand what they're doing. Been away from the community for a little bit. But when I showed up, the 2 billets, right, for the mass sergeants here, senior enlisted or operations chief. And then Major Huxtable told me I'm going to be his senior enlisted advisor. So definitely an adjustment going from, hey, I get to kind of do things by myself. And then now leading, we got 48 Marines on deck right now, including myself, taking everything that I've learned in my career and trying to apply it to these other 47 Marines within the company instead of just myself, right?
Yeah.
It's a little unique, but I would say I'm adjusting really well. Definitely have had some great conversations with Major Huxtable, talked about different visions of what we'd like to do with the company to take things to the next level for these Marines, not only as a Marine, but also in mission. And so far, being on deck for about 3 months, I think the Marines have received it really well. And that's definitely helped me get settled into this position, as I advise Major Huxtable on certain things, what is logical, what's reasonable, and what is right, and what's in the best interest for us as an organization. And I think he's taken it really well. It does help that him and I have a previous relationship because we were at Virginia Beach together. So it's refreshing to see him again after about 6 years. But, when it comes to adjusting and settling in, I'm starting to feel right at home.
But it's got to be difficult because you don't have tangible control of your unit in this capacity because they're essentially universally fapped out, right? I mean, I guess that's the most appropriate term. Or they're gainfully employed,
yep,
understandably, in the way in which we do things from a uniformed service perspective in support to our intelligence community partners and the mission set. But it's not like being at a rad bin.
Yeah.
And so how do you handle that distinction? And by extension, how do the Marines handle it?
Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. Right. And looking at Company H from that perspective, it is definitely a challenge. One of the first things, since my arrival here was to meet, greet, interact with all of the other services, all the other shops that the Marines work for. And for them to kind of get to know a little bit about me, for me to get to know a little about them, and kind of where I stand on a lot of different topics when it comes to how do we manage these Marines that, work for them. But in essence, at the end of the day, when they put their head down on that pillow, they're still a United States Marine. And when I've talked to the Marines throughout my entire time here, I talk about that balance for them. We're going to ask them to be the best intelligence professional that they can be, but also the best United States Marine that they can be. And one can't, be over the other, because if we lose sight and put more weight on one end, the other one's going to suffer. For example, if the Marines can't do the basic Marine Corps things like PFT, CFT, height, weight,
rifle range.
Right. Well, luckily for them, they don't have to qual here, right?
I say unlucky for them. Man. That's one of the things that. So I was stationed here a few years back.
Yep.
And I did not want to leave, but man, that was one of the things that I missed about the Fleet Marine Force, was being, around those Marine type things, and between DLI and Goodfellow and here for your first termers, they haven't had the opportunity to shoot a rifle potentially since boot camp.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'll say, totally can relate to the Marines on that aspect, because I went to Company B for my first duty station, and I was a pizza box, and that rubbed me the wrong way terribly for 4 years, and I was chomping at the bit to get the Radbin to fix that. And when I did get the Radbin, totally fixed it. But yeah, for the Marines here, it is the fortunate unfortunate thing, right? Fortunate that they don't have to worry about another requirement thrown on their plate. But unfortunately, that is one thing that could potentially hinder their careers. But, talking about the Marines with that balance between the two, I'll tell you, the NCOs here, they've taken that mindset that I'm trying to instill, and they're running with it. I do the Marine Corps thing, right? We're organized chaos. I throw last minute taskers on them, and they execute it to a T. And then, with them working with their shop supervisor, whoever it is, the communication is the biggest thing. That's key in every aspect that we do. And they can effectively communicate. So, only time will tell how well this is going to look, a year from now. But, for the 3 months that I've been here, it seems to be sinking in for the Marines. Talking with all the other site SELs, been introduced to the site SEL meetings. It's a good group that's here too. Very open to.
From the other services you're referring to?
Yes, the other services. Talking about our relationships, how we're going to manage these different things from, the NSA side, and then also our service requirements. So they're all willing to work with each other, with us. So going back to that balance, yeah, I think it's working out so far. And just continuing to reinforce that and show the Marines that what they're doing is important. And, having individuals like you coming in tomorrow, explaining to them why it's important, and then having an individual like me reminding them that, hey, the Marine Corps is important too. I think they enjoy that. So the Marines have thanked me for reminding them about certain Marine Corps things. And then, with them kind of briefing me on what they do in mission, and then hearing about how they're performing from their supervisors. I do foresee a little challenge, because they keep wanting to take our Marines and put them in leadership billets to put a little bit more on their plate. So, reminding them about that balance is the challenge, but I think the Marines are up for it.
How do you think they're handling the disconnect from the force design modernization piece? And maybe that's something that, based upon your perspective and your observations on that, can help me calibrate our discussion tomorrow morning with them, things that I should potentially cover a little bit more deeply.
So I'll say they're actually on top of it. The Commandant's planning guidance, one of my NCOs actually pushed that out to the entire company before I even got around to it. And I saw that in one of our little group chats, and I was like, these guys got it. They're reading up on what's next. What are things going to look like? What does the Commandant view our role in the grand scheme of things? So I don't think tomorrow when you come in, I don't think you'll be too surprised by it because, I fielded some great questions from it. I'm like, I don't got the answers for this, right? But I know a guy that's coming.
Yeah. I think I like Charlie Murphy and gave him some help.
I was like, yo, we just gave him some help.
Yeah. And, as you were talking, I was thinking back to my time. I was a gunny while I was here. There were only two gunnies, me and Hunter Nunnery. And I didn't have a great relationship with all of the other staff and COs. I wasn't a master sergeant, wasn't a senior enlisted leader position, but I was the OPSO for one of the shops that was here. Matter of fact, it was at that time the shop to be part of. And I was in an 04 billet as a gunny. And, as most things are here, in some of those leadership billets, you got to compete for it.
Yep.
I love that, right? Because it has nothing to do with what's on your collar. It's how tight is your game? And I just so happen to have had the opportunity 4 years in San Angelo to teach the mission that was being conducted here. And so it gave me a leg up. It was almost unfair wrestling with my neighborhood kids in terms of the other people that I was competing against for that assignment. But there were some contentious moments, some conflict, little things like I'm hosting a team leaders meeting, ops meeting, and one of the little conference rooms there in the now a newer facility, maybe not so new as it was then, but still modern, world-class facility. And there's still not enough conference rooms, so those become contention spots, and got into it with the senior chief when I was a gunny, but I didn't give a shit. I didn't bar none. Like, I'm a man first.
Yep.
Before I'm a Marine or a gunny or any other stuff. You're not gonna talk to me like I'm some child. I ain't one of your sailors that you're gonna disrespect. Because there's a tree line in San Antonio too, just like there is in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and I don't condone violence in terms of resolving conflict at all times, but there's a line, and you're not going to cross it. And there was another instance that I got into it with one of the Air Force master sergeants that was attempting to influence or strong arm one of my team leaders into giving up information that put the mission in a compromised position because of some of the stuff that we were doing needed to be handled very sensitively. And when I found out about it, I let her know she was out of line.
Yeah.
And it got so bad to the point that when we had to have a follow-on conversation, she brought two other witnesses as though like I was going to be intimidated by that. She grabs the biggest airman that she could, one of which wasn't a grappling partner of mine, but was a grappling partner with some guys that I grappled with. I'm like, I'm supposed to be intimidated by this. I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm going to tell you, whether they're here or not. And so you have to make the determination, because they were junior to us, whether or not you want them to hear everything that I have to say, because I'm not holding anything back. So we closed the door and I let her have it. Laid it all out there. But it seems to me you're not having those types of like fist bumps or not, or head bumps or anything like that, headbutting going on.
Yeah, I'd say from my perspective, not so much. That'd be definitely something in Mike Veely's lane, since he's the ops chief, and I'm going to let him deal with that.
Yeah.
For me as the senior enlisted, kind of quasi first sergeant, right? And dealing with good order, discipline, troop welfare, morale. So some of the things that I've seen so far with the other services is customs and courtesies, right? It's a funny topic to bring up, right? Because I was telling Major Huxtable about this. I was like, I don't know why I'm losing sleep about this, right? I don't know why I've been beaten up about this particular topic for about a week straight. And it wasn't the Marine Corps that brought this up. So just to put it in the context, they want to turn the site into no cover, no salute, right? And as I've walked around with Major Huxtable a few times.
That's a prevalent perspective. And, where you get into these areas where it's like on the verge between intelligence community and Department of Defense. And, I saw a lot of that when I was in Colorado recently with the Space Command and Space Force and some of the Marines that are out there. I think I know where you're going with this. And, please don't let me interrupt you.
Yeah, no, some of the other services have pitched the idea, right? And, they say all the services have to agree to it. And, for us, for some reason, the Marine Corps is the only one that said no.
Even the Coasties?
So when I checked in, they were like, yeah, everybody was on board except us, to include the previous senior enlisted, Brad Nalcom. He was holding that line. And, when I checked in, I probably had about 4 or 5 individuals kind of approach me and talk to me about the topic and ask for my perspective on it. And, to keep it short, I said no.
Why did you say? I think I know why, but just for the record, why did you say no?
So I actually had about a 5-minute conversation with the Marines about this, because at our last company, kind of like all hands, I know they've been talked to about it. And I told them, I want you guys to hear this from me. And I want you to hear my perspective and my reasoning and why I said no. One, we're service members. We're different. We took an oath. And, for us, we're keepers of tradition, customs and courtesies, good order, discipline. And, I went as so far as, it's a sign of respect, in our hierarchy for us to salute the officers. And then also, in return, that officer is respecting us by rendering a salute back to us, right? I'm not going to budge on our traditions, our customs and courtesies. The pitch was, it's a morale thing. I was like,
morale thing?
I don't know, right? But
Did somebody look you in the eye and say that out loud?
I won't throw names out there, but yes, they're like,
we can redact it later. But for the purposes of this conversation, I don't release anything. Let's lay that out. Yeah. Ground rules. We can say whatever we want. I want, first rule is do no harm.
Yep.
So nothing will be released unless you and I both agree upon it. So you can say whatever you want and we can just cut it out later.
So when I met with, he was actually one of the first ones to pitch it to me as a morale thing. He's a civilian.
Oh, even worse. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Prior service?
No. He's a military brat apparently, but
so is my son, but he's got no,
yeah. So,
and then they don't get it.
Yeah.
They don't get it. They don't get it.
Yeah. So I don't know where this culminated from, but he was one of the ones that brought it up to me. And then some of the other, service senior enlisteds in my first site meeting, they brought that up, and funny, they were like, we could be one of the first sites to do it, and I was just like, just because we'd be the only ones doing it doesn't mean it's the right thing. So wow. But the Marines got some feedback from them after had that conversation, and they're on board, right? They know who we are. They know who they are. They know what has been instilled in us since they stepped on those yellow footprints or whatever they step on over in OCS, right? They won't deviate from that. And the Marines are supportive in my stance because, they've been talked to by other people.
Of course they have, because they're looking to circumnavigate you and your position of authority and your influence and the gravity that you bring in your role. Historically, the senior enlisted leader position at the companies were master gunnery sergeants, and we changed that deliberately because it was a retirement thing. They go out and, you got some of your senior leaders are now as a company first sergeant, and they go off into the ether. And the game is much more serious than that. And we needed our best and our most experienced and knowledgeable, and we needed them in positions of influence. And so the master gunnery sergeants, Martin and Jensen now at CD&I, we've got other positions like Ben Rood's now in War Room with us in DCI. My position, although as the DCI SCA, my BIC is actually within one of the divisions, Information Maneuver Division, and we have a Master Guns and Sagabil who's in one of our other teams there in DCI. We put Master Gunnery Sergeants at the MEFs, and we thought that was a better use for the E9s in our occupational field. Would it be better, different, easier if you were a Master Guns in the engagements that you're having day to day, or you think you got it?
I'd say for my personality, right? I got it, right? Hands down. When it comes to accomplishing the mission, whatever I have on my collar, I could even be a gunny, right? I'm not going to let anybody else step on our toes. I think, in our previous interactions, even if they had shiny things on their collars, I wasn't going to let them step on our toes. I wasn't going to let them, have us deviate from our mission, whatever the case may be. Short answer, yeah, I got it, Sammy. I did tell Major Huxtable, right, because I could retire out of here, right, as a Mass Sergeant. If I do, I do. If I don't, I'll keep on trucking. But I did tell him if I do decide to hang the uniform up out of this place, I told him, you're going to get every ounce that I have to give until the end of my time, right? That's my mindset. So definitely, for these positions, you got to have the right mindset. Could be a Master Guns, could be, Mass Sergeant. And like I said, even a gunny, right? If their mind and their heart is in the right place, we're Marines, we adapt and overcome, right? We can execute.
Do you think that one Master Sergeant could be both the senior enlisted and the ops chief?
Can it be done? Yes. I'll use Brad Nowcomb as an example, right? That man held the fort down by himself, for a good 5 months. But just because we can do it, is that the most effective way to approach these things? I do think having two Mass Sergeants is beneficial. I think it's more effective. We're able to divide and conquer. Mike Veely and I got a lot of trust in Mike. He handles everything on the ops side. And for me, the first sergeant type of things. There are going to be some days to where both of us are just like, yo, what do I do with my hands today? And there are some days like, yeah, my hands are tied for the next month. So just having that support between those two billets, while it can be done by one person, it makes this unit and our sister units more effective.
Could we go down to a gunny and a Master Sergeant?
With the right gunny, yes. I think so, right? Definitely kind of personality driven, throughout our careers. We've got good gunnies, we've got some bad gunnies, right? We have that one up, one down rule. So I think we could, right? But having two Mass Sergeants just for the sole fact of who we interact with.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the tension and the struggle, is that we could. I've seen gunnies. As a gunny, I did, things that were outside of the scope of what you would normally consider for an E7, but not what you would consider for a gunny. But you put them sometimes in a compromised position because of the lack of seniority in terms of rank structure and comparison. And so it's not an even playing field.
Yep.
And I've, hell, I sometimes deal with that E9 to E9.
Yep.
Because I'm not a sergeant major. Now I don't want that, serve as an obstacle or impediment. the game is the game, but at the same time, I see your point. And I'm not down here to shave structure from any of the companies. I'm just asking the questions. Because I mean, hell, on the 22nd MU, 2008, I was the ops chief and the senior enlisted SIG and EW chief for that detachment, when normally, when I was prior to that, I was the instructor, one of the instructor evaluators as a sergeant at SOTG. We were sending out a master sergeant and a gunny in those two billets, or master sergeant and a staff sergeant as the ops chief, depending on which MU rotation you're talking about. And I wore both of those hats simultaneously. And so, but that doesn't mean it's to be done.
Yep.
And, it was Master Guns Eric Ballou that disabused me of the notion that just because I did it doesn't mean it's reasonable to expect everybody be able to do it. But I don't see myself as exceptional. But, it's because I did it. It's possible.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it now is just having the maybe it's audacity, maybe it's courage, maybe it's initiative to envision that it could be done, and then reverse engineer the steps to get to that, desired end state. And I was having a conversation recently with Colonel Ben Reed. He's the 26th MU commander. We're talking about the level of initiative that's currently prevalent or not so prevalent amongst our NCOs. And I kind of laid out for him not what I learned from, I didn't necessarily learn it exclusively from Radio Battalion mentors. I learned it from the mentors that lived in my neighborhood. I had a gunny Haverty. I had a gunner Beecher, first sergeants that were married that stayed next to us, Todd and Jackie. I didn't even know their last names. Yeah. And there was another first sergeant that lived right next door to me, and we get together in the evenings and have a bonfire, and our kids would play in the shadows around us, running around the yard. Street lights are up, but bonfire's up, and we're just all there hanging out. Just a group of families that became our extended family. And that's where I learned in that type of environment as a sergeant how to carry myself, or learn better rather. And so when I walk up to a lieutenant, or hell, even a captain, company commander at Radbin, and say, this is my training plan for my team. I've locked on the ability to co-use Bluebird with Victor 3.8 and draw water, ammo, chow, crypto, weapons, like planning that out as a sergeant, kill sheet, EDL. Like, I don't know if we afford sergeants to have that level of autonomy and initiative, ingenuity, just to empower them. And from my time here, there was also a lack of empowerment. And I had to step in on quite a few occasions, particularly when the civilians overstepped, and called them out. And as I started to understand their game and how it's different than ours, I was like, oh, he steps out of line. I got him. Called it out in the right venue. And then I put him on notice. There's people you can fuck with. There's people you can't. But here in my Topi, these are definitely people you can't fuck with.
Yep.
Unless you fuck with me.
Do you know me?
No.
Well, I'm the guy that tells you there are guys you can hit, and there's guys you can't. Now, that's not quite a guy you can't hit, but it's almost a guy you can't hit. So I'm gonna make a fucking ruling on this right now. You don't fucking head him. You understand?
And as a gunny on the watch floor with that type of personality, I got away with it. But I could still hear Eric Ballou's counsel in my ear. Well, yeah, because you would eventually go on to be selected, not just for Master Sergeant, but Master Guns. So of course you were able to do that as a gunny, but not everybody's capable of doing that. And so, one of the things that I've been struggling with is how do we find those guys and gals, those Marines, earlier, more often, more effectively, and then carve out some space for them to do those types of hard things that would leave some of the others maybe sucking wind to keep up.
Yeah, so that's a great point, right? And that's something that I've actually been working with the NCOs here. If we take a look at the list of NCOs that we have, or just the history of our NCOs, our occupational field promotes fairly quick. So we have young guys and gals stepping up to the plate, coming from DLI. They can show up to their first unit as a corporal.
I did it as a sergeant, dog.
So I put a lot of onus on the staff NCOs, right, when it comes to this. And we have to do our due diligence to mentor these young men and women, to guide them, to enable them, and to have their back while they're NCOs. For here, we got 2 platoons, 2 platoon commanders, 2 platoon sergeants, however you want to divvy up. And 3 of them are sergeants. One of them being a platoon commander, and sat down with them and kind of went over a bunch of different things, right? That, my role here as your senior enlisted is to do the normal things that you would envision a senior enlisted to do with the company. Mission accomplishment, troop welfare, right? The cliche thing. But behind the curtain, I'm going to be with you every step of the way when it comes to mentoring you, guiding you. I'm enabling them. I'm putting more things on their plate. And I've told them, I'm going to be hard on you, right? But I'm going to trust you at the same time. And it's okay if you make a mistake. Because when you make a mistake, we're going to learn from it. It's a teaching point. So I think Major Huxtable has a great mindset that he has the NCOs lead almost everything that we do. And, after an event, whether it's PME, PT, whatever it is, we provide feedback. When it comes to engaging with their shops or the other services, I kind of, funny thing that I told him was like, listen, I don't fucking trust nobody outside of our organization, right?
And God, we trust everybody else. Keep your hand where I can see them.
Right. It's like, if they're not wearing green Marpat, I don't trust them, right?
Man, I get that, but I also struggle with that too.
There's a balance with it, right? There's finesse that has to go into it, right? But I was really direct with him, right? I was like, blunt, right? You're in a unique environment. You're going to have to learn how to interact with civilians, other services, and deal with how they operate on a day-to-day basis. And for us, as a United States Marine, that could look really awkward, right? Or it's like alien to us. It's like, what? Why are they doing those things the way that they do, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes back to just mentoring them, guiding them, I tell them I got an open door policy, right? And ironically, I sit in a cubicle, so I can't close my door anyway, right? Because I don't have one. But they're always coming up, wanting to have conversations, and we sit down and we go over it of what is the topic of the day, what's being brought to my attention, and I try not to give them the answer, right? To enable them. It's like, hey, how did you approach it? Or, how would you have wanted to approach this? To get them to do a little bit of critical thinking.
Yeah.
We tell them at the end of the day, if you can't, It's okay. Let's talk. I'll tell you so far that, like I said, these NCOs here, they're our future rock stars with the right guidance, the right mentorship. Say I retire at 20 years. I'm actually kind of nervous, right? I look at my peers and my mentors, they're all gone. They're retired or retiring. You know, Mike Kerbo, good friend of mine, retiring this week. Going to go see him. And I was nervous. I was like, who's going to carry the torch?
I got it.
A lot of experience is out the door, right?
Yeah.
The majority of us are calling it a day, but being here and interacting with these fine young men and women, they've blown me away with their mindset of what they want to do. They're hungry, and I couldn't be more proud of them. You know, definitely rough around the edges from time to time, but you know, that's why, you know, you guys put me down here, Mike Veely down here. We're going to smooth those out.
Good. You know, when I was talking to the boss about, because this week all the general officers in the Marine Corps have the GOS general offsite, and then they have the executive offsite that goes on the back end of that, where only the 3 stars play. And so he's gainfully employed for the entire week, and instead of me, you know, either taking leave or hanging out there in the Pentagon, I wanted to prioritize for my travel, separate, solo, away from General Carter, to come to the places where I know that he wants to see, but he's not going to be able to see, at least initially, because when we start traveling, he's going to prioritize the MEFs, understandably. So, you know, 2 MEF, 1 MEF, 3 MEF, Hawaii, Okinawa, maybe even getting out to Australia. There's some impetus for that as well. Probably going to get him out to Silicon Valley. We got some commercial industry partners that we've been working with that he needs to meet face to face. And then between, you know, Marine Corps, you know, hiatus for November and everything in between, and you get to the holidays, we won't be able to get out here anytime soon. But there's a lot that's going on in Texas that not enough of us understand as it pertains to tradecraft, as it pertains to training, education, and some of the methodologies that are being employed in those respective areas that could illuminate a better way forward, particularly within the occupational fields that span our area of operations or area, of coverage in terms of DCI. And when now retired Master Gunnery Sergeant Sam Carter hosted a data summit back in 2016, 17 timeframe, the things that he was talking about in order to create what eventually would become the 2652 data science, data analyst, data engineer work role, MOS for us. And he eventually ended up partnering with Nova Community College to create that pipeline. The things that he was describing in his head, I had already seen done here in San Antonio. And it wasn't 51s doing it. It was 41s or 74s, Spanish linguists. And I shared with him, I said, yeah, like I watched E4s and E5s from all the services as well as our Marines do exactly what you're describing. And it didn't take, you know, a year at Nova Community College to do it. It took some dedicated mentoring from some contractors, some civilian employees, but that had, you know, decades of this under their belt. And they went from JIMA modeling to Jupyter notebooks, Python, and like all of this stuff. And they were also becoming adjunct faculty at the same time and working on wicked problems. Then you take that methodology, and this was 2014, 15, 16 timeframe, and then you not necessarily contrast it, but you put it next to the methodology that's being employed in Austin, Texas. Are you familiar with the Marine Corps Software Factory?
I am not.
So we got '06 savage nerds out there, and their job is to learn how to develop software that is using an agile framework, authorized to connect to our network and delivering real-time solutions while they're learning how to be engineers. So they're doing and learning and practicing and getting mentored and delivering and engaging with their intended target audience for their customer, for lack of a better term, the supported unit commander. Some of the tools that they built, edge on the side of electromagnetic warfare, or even something as simple as developing an app to make it easier for the monitor to connect with the Marines that he has to write orders on while he's doing a road show, so that they're not waiting and, stacked up 100 Marines deep. And, we kind of have a luxury that our arc field is kind of small. So Ben Britton can do what he's got to do, mostly remote, without necessarily having to go in person. Not that he doesn't, he does, but some of these other monitors, and they've got to get out there and they got to beat the streets almost like a recruiter would, right? But, they developed the Marines in Austin, partnered with the Army Futures Command, have delivered this capability. It's a training pipeline, but that's also producing outcomes at the same time. And then you have Goodfellow. And I worry about the pressure to maintain the pipeline in a healthy fashion, to get the talent through the schoolhouse, equipped and ready to get to the gaining unit in a manner that doesn't break what that installation can support. So those are some of the things that I'm keying in on. But here, man, I know you have good Marines, but what's making them better is the problem sets that they get to sink their teeth into while they're here, as well as the ability to do it alongside some of these civilians, even though their cultural proclivities are sometimes less than ideal, to keep the Marines in a warfighter's mindset, right? No need a salute. Come on now. But they are gaining something out of it. My concern here, though, is almost identical to my concern at Fort Meade with some of the 1700s, in that they could potentially learn that it's easier to just get out and do this here indefinitely, when potentially we as a Marine Corps have failed to deliver to them the experience that we promised them that they would have by joining the Marine Corps in the first place. And not to cheapen the idea that these Marines aren't real Marines, or that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that they didn't get to float. They didn't get to experience that exhilaration on deployment. And while I was here, I did everything I could to lock on deployment opportunities. And I know that they were turned off at one point in time, but then they got turned back on. Is that still something that they're contending with? Or
so deployments here, yes, it can happen. That was a question that one of the first questions I asked for the Marines here.
Good.
It's rare, but it can. And one of the things about being in my seat, I tried to relate to them and explain to them the situation that they're in. You're not at a radio battalion. You're in a unique location. And then also you kind of have to tie in the fact that, is this peacetime Marine Corps or is it wartime Marine Corps? There's a lot of different factors. But I told them, listen, I was in your shoes, right? So kind of going back to my time, I joined and I wanted to be Ricky Recon. I wanted to be the guy that was always out the door. I chose Company B, and I heard there was a lot of opportunities there. And I've already told some of the Marines this, and I asked them the question, guess how many deployments I got in my first tour? And some of them give me some crazy numbers, And some of them were on the money. They're like 0. And I was like, you're right, 0. And when I told them I joined during the height of the Iraq War, how do you think that made me feel, knowing that my brothers and sisters were going overseas and doing what the majority of us signed up for? And here I am in the States, and it killed me inside. It made me question a lot of different things, but I tell them, stay the course, because you stay in this gun club long enough.
Oh yeah. There were plenty of opportunities to go around.
Somebody's going to interject themselves. And I will tell you, there was a man, Chief Warrant Officer 4, Jim Farquhar. He became my OIC right before I left, and him and I had a real conversation. And he's like, Quinn, I know you want to deploy, and I want to deploy you, but I know I don't have enough time with you. But this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk to 3rd Radio Battalion, because I know you got orders. And sure as shit, I checked in the 3rd Radio, talked to the ops chief, and he gave me XYZ. And I was like, he even threw RP at me because I had just gone to jump school. And I was like, Mass Sergeant, I just want to deploy. 30 days later, I'm standing up on a PTP cycle.
Good.
And 6 months later, I'm out the door. And I tell the Marines that story. It's like, sometimes you're going to have good tours. Sometimes you're going to have bad tours. There's a balance. It'll level itself out. But at the end of the day, we want to get you out the door, right? We want to be able to enable you to do the things that you signed up for. But one of the questions I also pose to these individuals when, they got that little carrot dangled in front of them, it's like, hey, become a contractor, right? The money's on the other side. That's when the recruiter in me comes kind of out, right? And I ask them, why did you join the Marine Corps? What did you hope to accomplish? And did you accomplish that? And if you can't answer no to that question, why not give it another go? That life is vicious, right? And even in the Marine Corps, we're vicious. But if you stick around, it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah. And with that, we out.